So what we're going to do now is go look at the pump display, walk through the lockout steps. It has a graphical procedure for that pump, so you can see how the procedure correlates with the equipment. And then we're going to come back and show you how to use how to create a lockout procedure. Just the basic steps. This is an exhibitor copy, so you can see the dangers beware of lurking exhibitors and attendees. Notify affected employees. Right here, we can handle a few more of these. These are just examples, so we can follow the steps in the back. No, we're just getting familiar with the procedures themselves. So share them, look at them. First step on the back, notify affected employees, right? If I was servicing this pump, who would be the affected employee? Everybody else in this room, because you're all around the equipment and have the potential to be affected by this being shut down. So what I'll do is I'll walk through this, so I don't have to pick on any of you. First step, notify affected employees. So at this point, I would say I'm locking out the pump, so stay away while I'm doing my work. I would review the lockout procedure to make sure it's right, and if this was for the pump. Does anybody have the one for the pump? I'll take that and swap you. So this one picture, got everything. I would look at the first step, or first I would see how many locks I need. 3 locks. So let's actually go to the master lock area. We'll get 3 locks, and also I need 1 ball valve device. I mean, one of these ball valves is lockable, the other one's not. So we'll get 1 ball valve device, 3 locks, and then we'll come back. Locks and things. The procedure is usually mounted right at the point of use, so I can keep it here and start to walk through it. If there's any dangers associated with it, chemicals, things like that, it'll be listed up here. This one says, be wary of lurking exhibitors and attendees, so be sure to worry about that. So first step, on the back here, after reviewing lockout procedure, perform machine stop. So if it was on, I would turn it off. It's already off. Isolate the energy. That's where now we've turned to the front side of the procedure. Shows step by step how to do it, top to bottom. Electrical, 120 volt, use padlock. It shows where it's at in text form and also in the picture. So I turn it off. Move V1 disconnect to off. Attempt to restart at CP1. This is where I attempt to restart. No movement. We're good. And this is when you want to follow these things in order too, because attempting to restart here, if it did restart while the valves are open, no damage to the pump. If I restarted after I had this, or after the pump's on and the valves are shut, you could deadhead the pump, you could burst valves, you create another hazard there. So attempting to restart after you've locked the electrical is a good idea. Apply lock and tag. It'd be easier to fill out the locks and tags before you put them on there too. That way you're not cramped at a weird angle. So we're just going to pretend I filled them out. It's also important too to make sure you've installed this correctly by trying to turn it back on right after you've locked it out. One example training, I had somebody lock it up here, which doesn't do anything. So if you did that, mistakenly, you would know it didn't work when you tried to turn it back on. So I keep my key on me. Actually, I'm going to keep these lined up so I don't have trouble removing them. Next step, water 1 says water recirculation. Suction 30 psi is the maximum pressure I'm going to be working around. It needs a padlock. It shows it's W1 here. We have a graphical tag to speed that up. It shows right where W1's at. It says turn it off and apply lock. See, you hear the lock mechanism fall in place. This one accepts a lock right to the valve. Oh, lock and tag, sorry. And normally you keep your keys right on you. I just don't want to have to figure out which key's which when I'm done here. You don't set your key right by your lock. Or you'll be very good protection-wise. Next step, W2, recirculating water discharge, 30 psi. It says use ball valve device. It tells you where it's at, located 3 inches above pump. Shows you in the picture. I will apply my ball valve device. Where's my ball valve device? Hey Bob, do you have that? Or do you, you right there, yeah. Okay. And I will demonstrate on how to use this too. Turn it off. And why would you always do suction before discharge? Well, it's written that way in the procedure for one, but why do we write it that way? If this was a pressurized system and you shut this one off first, you've trapped pressure in here. By shutting the suction off first, you're reducing your chance for trapping pressure. So it's just another way of making it safer by following it in order.
Is that a new device?
Yeah, this is a brand new device by Master Lock. There we got it. I had it upside down.
Yeah.
So make sure it's tight. There you go. Now you can tell it's tight. Try to turn the valve back on. It won't go. Make sure you have your device on correctly. Like I said, with the other valve devices, people would put them on and they'd put the bar down here, so you just move the whole thing up when you want to turn it back on. There's no level of protection. Put my lock and tag through the device. Now you can see how a ball valve just became lockable. There. Now, if I want to do a group lockout, now I'm going to mix my keys up here. It's locked out right now. I can put all my keys in here. Oh, who figured this out earlier? Push this down. Push it. It should. There we go. I put all my keys in here. That prevents the main locks from being, and then, okay, that slides. And then I could apply another lock. Did you have another lock? Yeah. The first lock should be the person who locked all these out to make sure it doesn't come back on. Also could be a shift change lock. To be the last person on there. It doesn't have to have an owner. But at least exclusive control. And everybody else who's working on it needs their lock protection by putting their locks on here. If there's no room and you're the last person on here, you can use a hasp. And then start joining more and more people on until you have as many people as you need on there. And it's a lot easier because then you only have one lock hanging on all the lockout points. You don't have 50 locks trying to work around right here. Make sense? And you know what? I'm just going to leave this, but you reverse it. Reverse the steps from bottom to top to re-energize it. You don't start with electrical. You start with bottom up when you re-energize your piece of equipment. After you've checked the machine, make sure you're done using it. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? What's the last step on the shutdown, locking it out? Attempt to restart it. Most important step. If that restarted at that point, yeah, it's going to do damage to the equipment. But you definitely want to know that before you got in there and started servicing it. And then you might want to investigate, make sure you got the right electrical switch, and call somebody in safety and tell them the procedure's inaccurate. So when we're restoring it, check the machine, check your area, make sure there's no authorized or affected employees in the area. Verify machine controls are in neutral. If you attempted to restart this and left it on, you don't want to leave it on when you start it. That could cause an arc flash, starting it under load, especially when you deal with higher voltages. 4160, if you started that when it was on, you're definitely going to see an arc flash. If it was 4160 full. 120 probably wouldn't so much. Verify machine controls are in neutral, so if I had left it on, I would turn it off now, remove my lockouts, re-energize it from bottom up, and then notify affected employees if there was operators in the area that you're done with your service and it's ready to be put back in service. And that last step's important because I think a lot of companies suffer from that lack of communication. When somebody's done working on it, they just leave. And they're like, well, I think he was servicing it, and you don't know if he's done and just didn't lock it out. There has to be that communication. I'm done with servicing. You may now operate the pump. That kind of communication. Gets that productivity, gets that ROI back into your system. Any questions on the graphical approach or how to utilize the procedures? Can you see the benefits of the graphical now with the tags? How it speeds it up, especially when you're in dark environments or something with about 8 lockout points, complex pieces of machinery. I mean, this thing's pretty simple. When you look at your industrial settings, how complex it can get. The graphical approach just helps make it quicker without jeopardizing safety.
And managers can enforce it better too, because not all managers understand.
That's a good point too.
That's what I see is when they go graphical. It's far easier for people to do a double check.
Yep, making sure they've done it right.
Is it required to have the procedures out on the process?
No. No, it's not required, but you like to see it, right?
Yes.
It's going to make it easier.
What percentage, or would you say, people post them versus put them in
All of our
binder?
clients that let us. What we don't post them is when the environment's too harsh to support a procedure. FDA, for a while, we couldn't post these because they have CIP process that just eats our laminate up and turns it into a bacteria balloon. the water gets in there and just fills with green water. It's just gross, especially for a clean environment. So what we've done is created the injection molded formats for the harsher environments, outside, FDA, CIP areas, areas with real high caustic environments, even acetone can withstand that, and up to 10 years outdoor. So we have the capabilities of mounting them anywhere now. It's just the cost associated with that. But it does become more usable and subsequently safer to mount them right at the machines.
See that?